This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. The pro-life movement is working on a bold venue, to deliver its message. New York's Times Square. Next month, Focus on the Family will take over the square with a live ultrasound of a baby in the womb. And this week, Students for Life of America are protesting in an unusual way. Heather Sells has the story. Heather.
Yes, George, students from across the country are in Times Square this week, and their message is that their generation is the pro-life generation. Their unusual method rallying with 900 crosses representing the 900 babies that are killed daily at Planned Parenthood clinics across the country. Another big visual for the group is a digital billboard that's rotating for 3 days with a pro-life message, including one that says only 7% of millennials support abortion extremism. It is all part of a pushback from a variety of pro-life groups we're seeing right now in response to legislation that New York passed earlier this year. That New York law allows abortion up till birth, and it may already be changing attitudes. In February, a Marist poll found that Democrats who identify as pro-life jumped from 20 to 34%. The head of Democrats for Life says they are seeing their numbers go up, and they are crediting New York and other states that have recently considered legalizing abortion through the third trimester.
I think what has helped is the recent move by New York and Virginia and other states to redefine what it means to be pro-choice as someone who supports abortion up to 9 months and even after.
Pro-lifers will head to New York again in 3 weeks for a Focus on the Family event, also in Times Square. President Jim Daley says it has the potential to change hearts and minds.
We'll have great speakers, we're going to have music, but we're also going to do a live ultrasound of a third trimester baby. And I'm telling you what, with the 4D technology that we have, it looks like a one-year-old picture, a baby of a one-year-old. It's phenomenal. And there is no way a person's going to be able to say that is not a child. It is a child, and we want everybody to see it.
And George, just to explain that, is 4D ultrasound, as he was mentioning. Most of us are used to 2D, which provides a static image, or 3D, which merges 2D images from different angles. But with 4D, you add the dimension of time, so people in Times Square will be able to see a live video of a baby in the womb kicking, stretching, doing whatever it's doing at that moment.
Yeah, pretty wild. We will be covering that story for sure. Heather, thanks for that report. By the way, later in the show, Kristen Hawkins, the president of Students for Life, will join us to share more. In other news, abortion will be banned in Ohio after an unborn baby's heartbeat is detected. Governor Mike DeWine signed the fetal heartbeat bill into law Thursday. It was a victory for pro-life groups who had wanted this for a very long time. But the American Civil Liberties Union of Ohio said it was preparing a constitutional challenge to the law on behalf of 4 abortion clinics in the state. The president of Ohio Right to Life says the heartbeat bill is the next incremental step in their strategy to overturn Roe v. Wade. That's the 1973 Supreme Court decision which legalized abortion nationwide. One other story on abortion. Second trimester abortions will be banned now in North Dakota. Republican Governor Doug Berman signed a bill earlier this week that would ban abortion methods used in the second trimester. Under the law, doctors are prohibited from using forceps, clamps, or scissors to remove a baby from the womb. Physicians who violate this law could face up to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. So far, there is only one abortion clinic left in the state. Google may be manipulating its search results. That's according to documents obtained exclusively by the news website The Daily Caller. The publication details ways in which the search engine bars sites who violate their misrepresentation policy and good neighbor policy. Sites like Gateway Pundit and the Conservative Tribune were on the blacklist. Google tweeted they don't manipulate search results to fit a, quote, particular ideology, but does admit it bans sites that violate its policies. Jordan Bloom, deputy editor with the Daily Caller, joins us now to share more. He is the author of this article. Jordan, thanks for being on the show. You have received documents from a source at Google about the news blacklist. What did you learn?
Well, so first of all, I want to be clear that there are particular types of search results that are impacted by this. So when you do a Google search, you or I, let's say we want to go see a movie or something. I type in, I don't know, Captain Marvel or something, and there will be a whole bunch of different types of search results. You'll have the movie times, you'll have trailers, and that kind of thing. So there aren't just the 10 blue links. So this blacklist, and it is a blacklist, Google refers to this as a blacklist in these documents. So I'm not applying that word to them. This is a word that they use internally at the company. But this blacklist applies to all of the stuff that isn't the little blue links. So Google News, the videos, all of that, according to the documents, could be impacted by this blacklist. So the reason why this kind of matters is that Google CEO Sundar Pichai, when he testified before Congress back in December, he said that there was no manual manipulation of search results. Manual, meaning there's a little guy behind the curtain that actually is making editorial decisions. And that's something that many of us would have probably expected, because if you have a product like Google News, there really are editorial decisions that are being made there. Are we going to include this site or not? And, there's no getting around that. But the problem is the company hasn't been quite honest about that. And some of these sites that we've discovered are actually on the blacklist don't seem to actually violate these policies of misrepresentation or sponsorship. Matt Walsh's blog, for example, I don't know of any reason why he would be considered sponsored or misrepresenting, who's getting his money or any of that. And so there are judgment calls going on here that, at least in a few instances, seem to have been made badly.
Jordan, I'm curious. Google fired back, claiming that your story was purposely misleading. Did they say exactly in what ways?
No. So what you're referring to there is just after we published the story, Google sent out these tweets, and I asked them for comment before the story was published. I asked them for comment after the story was published, and then when I saw those 3 tweets, I said, if you think my story is purposefully misleading, why don't you tell me why? And so they sent me back this one-line thing that said, pointing basically me to a series of tweets by a Cato Institute analyst. Basically, they have not disputed any single factual point of the story that we ran. That's kind of the key point here.
Okay. Jordan, thank you so much for all your work, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
A Trump administration policy restricting military service for transgender people takes effect today. The policy requires incoming service members to live and serve according to their biological sex. It ends the practice of allowing gender transition surgeries for those already in the service and bars people who have had surgery or hormone treatment for gender transition from joining up. The policy exempts current transgender military personnel and those in the process of transitioning. The new rules reverses an Obama-era policy of allowing transgenders to serve openly in the military. Pentagon isn't doing enough to protect religious liberties, according to some defenders of freedom. Mike Berry, Chief of Staff at First Liberty Institute and a former active duty U.S. Marine Corps officer, wrote an opinion piece in the Washington Examiner explaining why, and he joins us now. Welcome, sir. Mike, what led you to write this opinion piece?
Well, at First Liberty Institute, we've had to defend multiple service members who've had their religious freedoms taken away by the military, the very organization that they've served in honorably, and the very freedoms that they put their lives on the line sometimes to defend are being taken away from them. And as you pointed out, or as my column pointed out, a couple of years ago, President Trump signed an excellent executive order promoting and defending religious liberty within the government. But it seems to us at First Liberty that the Pentagon either didn't get the memo, or worse, it looks like they are willfully ignoring it and ignoring the president and ignoring the Constitution, for that matter. So we think that President Trump has a great opportunity to really send the clear message to the Pentagon to, number one, you don't get to ignore the commander-in-chief, and number two, that religious liberty still has to be the law of the land, even within the United States military. And that would serve a number of purposes. It would protect our Constitution, it would protect our service members and our veterans, and it would send a clear message that if you're serving in uniform, you don't give up the rights that you put your life on the line to defend.
As we mentioned at the top, you are a retired Marine, and as we've said, you believe the men and women serving our nation are defending our rights and shouldn't be asked to give up theirs. How big is that a problem?
It is a problem that continues. Obviously, it's a problem that existed before President Trump was elected. A lot of people were very hopeful and optimistic that once President Trump took office, that we'd be able to resolve some of these issues. But at First Liberty, we see that there's still a lot of ground to be plowed here. We've had to defend numerous service members who, whether they're in the United States Army or the United States Air Force or any branch of the military, officers, enlisted, etc. I'll give you one example. We defended an Army chaplain, and we were successful in that case, thank goodness. But we pointed to President Trump's religious liberty executive order. We actually pointed to federal law, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and saying you cannot punish a military chaplain for exercising his First Amendment rights of free exercise of religion. The Army's response to us was, well, President Trump's executive order and even that federal law called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, those are pretty general and broad, and we have specific policies in the Army that are more specific than those, so we're going to follow the Army policies. I mean, they're literally thumbing their nose at the President of the United States and the Constitution and federal law. So I don't know how else to describe it. And thankfully, like I said, First Liberty, we were successful in defending that chaplain. But how many more service members do we have to defend because the military just doesn't get the message that you don't get to flaunt the law because you think that you're different or special?
Okay, terrific. Mike, thanks for coming on the show. Mike Berry, Chief of Staff at First Liberty Institute. Appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.
Moving overseas, Israel's first attempt to land a spacecraft on the moon failed. The space probe reportedly experienced an engine failure just short of landing on the moon's surface. The attempted moon landing began as a dream by 3 Israeli engineers 8.5 years ago. Despite the failure, it still represents the epitome of Israel as a startup nation. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu encouraged the space team to push forward despite the failure.
If at first you don't succeed, you try again.
You can learn more about the launch and Benjamin Netanyahu's historic 5th win tonight on Jerusalem Dateline. You can catch it right here on the CBN News channel at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Coming up, more on pro-life efforts in the heart of the Big Apple and a generation that says it wants to be the one to end abortion in America.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
At the top of the newscast, we told you about New York's Times Square becoming an epicenter of sorts in the pro-life fight against abortion. Kristen Hawkins with Students for Life of America joins us now with more specifically as abortion heats up and becomes more accepted. Welcome, Kristen. Tell us about first about your concern over the acceptance of late-term or full-term abortions.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is something that the pro-life movement categorically opposes. We oppose abortion in, every stage of pregnancy. And when you think about late-term pregnancy, at the last 3 months of pregnancy, the last 6 months of pregnancy, majority of Americans actually agree with us that abortion is unnecessary and it's extremism, because they see that this really does end the life of a preborn human person, a person with rights, a baby. And so that's why we went to New York, was to stand up to New York State, to tell them that the majority of our generation of millennials, the largest voting bloc in America, we reject this extremism and we're against it.
Kristen, we wanted to show our viewers a video of you recently talking with a student about saving the lives of babies born alive after botched abortions. Take a look here.
Why is it not a baby? Is what I want you to tell me. Is why do you think it's not a baby?
It's a fetus.
What's it?
It hasn't been born yet.
But if it has been born.
I'm curious, how did that conversation end, and what is at the heart of this mindset, Kristen?
Well, that conversation ended with me. At one point, I just stared at the audience and said, "You've just heard it." I pointed out the cognitive dissonance and the illogical position of those who advocate for abortion, because I had asked the young woman if she believes children who cross the border, make the dangerous trek with their parents across the border, if those children are at risk of dying from dehydration or malnourishment, should we give them food and water? Should we give them medical care? And she said, absolutely. And then I asked, well, what about babies born alive during an abortion procedure? Should we also give them medical care? And she said no, because those babies weren't babies. And then she actually went on to say, well, I know science says something different. And so what she was trying to make was a philosophical argument, saying that, yes, they might be human children, but they don't have the same worth, the same value as you and I. And honestly, she changed a lot of minds that moment in the crowd. It was a sold-out crowd, 150 students at Boston College. She changed a lot of minds because students who didn't enter the room agreeing with me about abortion saw the illogical position that the abortion movement has to take.
Back to your efforts in Times Square with the students rallying with crosses and billboards. What responses are you guys getting?
We're actually getting a really great response. I'm getting flooded with emails of people who've seen our billboard, who are for the first time learning about Students for Life and learning that we, in fact, are the majority. Yesterday, when we took 910 pink crosses to Times Square with about 30 students, one cross representing every baby Planned Parenthood will abort each day. And it was significant. People were stopping, taking pictures. Our staff actually engaged with many passerbyers when they were walking through Times Square, tourists, and we actually changed a lot of minds in that moment.
Do you think this will be the generation to bring an end to abortion in America?
I absolutely believe this generation will abolish abortion.
Okay, Kristen Hawkins, thank you. Kristen Hawkins, Students for Life of America, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll be bringing you the top trending stories from faithwire.com. That will be right back in a moment, so stay with us.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Shawn Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
It's time now for a look at some of the top trending stories from our sister website, faithwire.com. Here's CBN's Jessica Chaco and FaithWire's Dan Andros.
Well, it's been an exciting week for college basketball, especially if you're a fan of the Virginia Cavaliers. The Cavs are the new national champions, winning in overtime against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Head coach Tony Bennett says God used the championship win to teach the team a crucial lesson. Here to tell us more about it, Managing Director of FaithWire.com, Dan.
Well, hey, this all started last year for Virginia. They actually made history in the way you don't want to make history, and they became the first #1 seeded team in the NCAA tournament to lose to a 16 seed. It had never actually happened before. So they were the first ones to do that, and that's, of course, a very difficult loss to stomach for a team that was expected to probably go to the Final Four in the championship game. So they came back this year, and they almost seemed like a team of destiny, so to speak, because, man, they had like 3 close games that went right down to the wire and had crucial shots right at the end in classic March Madness fashion. And to see Coach Bennett recognize and acknowledge God, in that whole situation, and he called it a lesson in perseverance and hope and joy. And he drew some great faith lessons from that on that front. From the whole journey, from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high.
It's a great story. Well, a youth volleyball team in Fresno, California saved a woman's life when they found her dangling from a bridge trying to take her own life. It's what they did next, though, that has made them national heroes. Dan?
Yeah, so they were out jogging, I guess just getting in condition for their upcoming season. Or practicing or their normal routine of jogging, and the kids came up across a bridge on their normal route, and there was a woman there, and she initially waved at them, so they kind of noticed her. But they said in a flash of an eye, all of a sudden she was hanging off the edge of the bridge. She had just climbed over, and she was literally hanging just by her arms, fully over the bridge. And so the coach ran to get his phone and call the police, and instructed the boys, these are young teens, 12, 13 years old and preteens, and instructed them to just tell her that life matters. And so these kids listened to their coach. They went over there and they just kept telling her that her life matters, that people love her, that and they just kept repeating it. Life matters and people love you and don't do this. And I guess seeing those kids and seeing those young ages sort of imploring her to get back over really worked on her, and God worked on her heart through that. And she pulled herself up, and a miracle happened. She did not take her own life that day. And so the coaches and the town and the police, they had nothing but praise for these kids for having the courage to actually speak life into that situation when I think a lot of us would be shell-shocked, especially if someone is 13 years old.
It's an incredible story. Thanks, Dan. Well, for stories like these and more, visit FaithWire on Facebook and on the web at faithwire.com.
Coming up, good news from Johnny and friends as the worldwide advocate for people with disabilities talks about how God has cared for her through your prayers.
as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
We have some good news to report from Johnny Erickson Tada. She is home from the hospital after a bout with pneumonia kept her there for 2 weeks. She says her years of chronic quadriplegia has put a strain on her heart and lungs and makes it very difficult when she's trying to fight pneumonia. Even more difficult, she says. She wrote on her website, when asked how I was doing, I could say, Jesus gives me peace. It's not as the world gives, so my heart's not troubled, and I am not afraid. Tada also thanked everyone for their prayers and encouragement. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com, and tell us what you think about the stories you have seen here. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or you can reach out to us via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Well, folks, that is it for this edition of CBN News Channel right here. Stay with us. I hope you enjoy a fantastic rest of the day and have a great weekend. God bless.